I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, September 11th, 2019 meeting of the Chaska Planning Commission. Welcome, everyone. Let's do a roll call. Liz?
Yep. Bovee? Here. Cross? Pfeiffer? Here. Urbanski?
Here.
Seiler?
Here.
Lacey?
Here.
Brass?
Here.
Olson?
Here.
And Chairperson Bilkey.
Here. Thanks, Liz. Now I'd like to, next order of business, to adopt the agenda for tonight.
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Pfeiffer and Urbanski. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next on the agenda is a visitor presentation. Is there anybody that has anything to present that's not on the agenda? Okay, very good. Next is we're going to approve the previous meeting minutes from the August 14th Planning Commission meeting. Did everybody get a chance to review?
Yep.
It looked good to me, so.
Make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Urbanski and Seiler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Let's see, no consent items. And next is the action item to approve the preliminary plat and conditional use permit for Shepherd of the Hill Townhomes, Habitat of Humanity, or for Humanity, PC number 2019-17. Liz, take it away.
Thank you, members of the Planning Commission. We have a preliminary plat and conditional use permit request tonight for Shepherd of the Hill Twinhomes. So the site is located on the corner of Highway 41 and Engler Boulevard in the southeast quadrant of that intersection. The subject area that we're looking at tonight is basically this open green area that they've had preserved on this piece of property for an amount of time there. So Habitat for Humanity is a national nonprofit organization. Their mission is basically to provide everyone a decent place to live. So they are the applicants tonight for this twin home proposal. And they did come in earlier this year. It was June of this year that they came in with their first step in the process of the concept plan. And it was approved during that time by you guys and City Council. There were a couple issues or items that were brought up during that first phase in the project, and those related to the architecture of the homes, the traffic, drainage, and the headlight glare coming from the entrance of that project itself. So I'll kind of get into each of these items specifically as we kind of go through the presentation here. So specifically what they're asking for tonight is preliminary plat approval and then conditional use permit approval for the construction of 4 twin homes, which would result in 8 total dwelling units. The zoning out there is currently R1, which is a low-density single-family residential zoning district. So twin homes are allowed within that district with a conditional use permit. So that is why they are asking for that tonight. This is an existing condition survey of the property, just to give you an idea of kind of what the topography is like on the site. So as you're kind of looking at that open area that they're proposing the project in, it does start to slope southerly towards the corner there. So you can see somewhat of a slight grade change within that area as it slopes downward. So the overall project or the preliminary plat is kind of shown in this exhibit here. So the site that they're looking at in total is about 2 acres in size. So again, they're proposing 4 twin homes around a cul-de-sac that comes off of Crest Drive to the east here. So each twin home obviously will have 2 dwelling units associated with them. So 8 total units are proposed within this plat. In terms of the lot sizes and even the right-of-way widths for the streets, they all meet city standards for that. So there's no issue with the size of the lots that they're proposing out there and with the setbacks. So all of that is compliant with the R1 standards. I've also included the landscape plan that they're proposing out there. So with any residential development, they are required to put in boulevard trees every 50 feet. So they are proposing that along the perimeter of the roads there. In addition, they will be adding overstory trees in the rears of each of these units or lots to kind of help complement the area. And then they will also be doing some shrubbery around the front edges of these units as well. So there's two different types of units that are proposed out here, just given the grade changes from the north and south sides of this project. So the northern units are basically going to be a 2-story above grade unit that you'll see from the cul-de-sac. And these will be slab on grade units, 2 stories above grade, and they won't have a basement. So essentially, from the cul-de-sac side of things, you'll see 2 stories, but as you're coming south on Crest Drive, you will only see 1 story above grade. And I'll show that in the next elevation plan. And then the other units, which are on the south side of the cul-de-sac, are 1 story above grade units with basements. So the basements will be excavated into the ground there, kind of consistent with the topography that you see out there. So again, the 2-story above grade units is shown on this slide here. These are the northerly units. So again, you'll see the 2 stories from grade from the street view. But as you look at the rear of these, it will appear as if it's only 1 story above grade. And again, these units are basically just conforming to the topography that is out there on the site. One of the items that was brought up as a concern during the concept plan side of things was providing more articulation on the back side of these units. Before, they were just a linear, flat facade, and we basically gave them the comment to look at that a little bit further to see where they can, provide a little bit more articulation. So in this instant, they have changed the backside so that it provides a bump out in the middle of that, so it provides more depth on the backside there instead of a straight linear unit that you see. And this is also true for the southern units. You're going to see the exact same rear facade treatment on that backside with the bump out. All of these units will be composed of LP SmartSide, and they will be utilizing 4-inch window trim around all the windows. And then, as you've seen in both units, all of the elevations of these homes will provide windows. So you're not going to see a blank lap siding facade on any of these units. And this is just pulled from the concept plan rendering that they did, just to give you kind of a general idea of what you're seeing from the cul-de-sac or from the entrance of the cul-de-sac. This is obviously kind of more of a bird's eye view, but gives you an understanding of kind of where the 2-story above grade units are and the 1-story above grade units are as well. Another item that was brought up during the concept plan was the issue with drainage, specifically for the southern lots on the south that abut this site. They were experiencing some serious drainage issues currently with how the property slopes and basically drains into their backyards. So that was one thing that the developer looked at as a part of this preliminary request to see how that may or may not be improved as a part of this. So they were able to kind of look at the grading plan and how the drainage is going to basically be rerouted with how they are grading the site. Again, the drainage currently flows southerly, kind of with the lay of the land out there now. The proposed drainage will be reduced from 1.8 acres to 0.5 acres with this proposal. So currently 1.8 acres of drainage occurs onto the southerly properties, and then with the addition of these units, it's going to reduce it by 3 times less than what's currently out there. And that's due in part of having the cul-de-sac there. It will be able to collect a lot of that overland drainage and reroute it to the curb system on Crest Drive to connect into the system that's on Scenic View Drive, just south of this area. So it obviously doesn't take away all the drainage onto the southerly properties. So our engineer has indicated some further methods that they could apply to really try to strive for better drainage patterns out there. So one option being they could provide a berm on the south side here to really collect the water that comes down and reroute it to Crest Drive. Or the other option is to extend the storm sewer system that's currently at Scenic View Drive to connect into this development. So those are a couple options that the developer can further look into, and a condition of approval that we've put on this request tonight for them to further evaluate. But even with this proposal, they are improving the drainage out there from what it currently is. So that's always good. And then with the conditional use permit, I don't know, I thought I had a slide on here for traffic, but I'll get into that with the conditional use permit standards. One of the items I did want to address before I got into these is I did put a packet of correspondence that was basically communication between the developer and the property owner who is experiencing the proposal of headlight glare onto their property at 1561 Crest Drive. So I just wanted you to have that as reference as we're starting to talk about the headlight glare issue, because I think that's the only one that's really unresolved at this point. And the property owner is here to kind of talk about his concerns with that. But with the traffic, we did also do a traffic study as a part of this preliminary submittal. So they have submitted that as a part of the preliminary request tonight. And basically the conclusion of that stated that there will be about a 5.6 volume increase onto Crest Drive with this proposal. If you compare that to a regular detached single-family development going there, about 5 units, it's only less than 1% increase compared to that. So in overall standings with the traffic study that they've done out there, it did conclude that the level of service to Crest Drive will not be negatively impacted with this increase in volume. So that's usually a good thing with a traffic study on residential development. If there's no change to the level of service in a negative manner, then it shouldn't negatively impact the performance of Crest Drive. So with the conditional use permit side of things, so there are 6 standards that they do need to meet for a CUP. And I've laid them out on this slide here. I'm only going to go over a couple tonight that are the most applicable. So the first one that I wanted to go over is the special use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the neighborhood. So with the zoning out there, it is already zoned R1, so it does allow for this type of use to occur out there with a conditional use permit. So they're not asking for anything that's outside of the zoning requirements out there. They are meeting the minimum standards for the twin home development. And twin homes are not an uncommon application either in other single-family developments. We see that here in the city on Reveau Road, as well as downtown Chaska. And with this new proposal, it will actually improve the conditions out there as it relates to drainage. So we definitely see that as a positive piece that's coming out of the proposal, is that the drainage will be redirected away from those southern properties. Not entirely, but we've provided a couple methods that could help improve that even further. Did want to point out that the issue of headlight glare is probably the only open-ended piece right now that the property owner at 1561 Crest Drive will have some headlight glare due to the location of the entrance of the cul-de-sac, but they'll have a chance to speak and kind of give their concerns, and then you can also look at the communication correspondence that we provided tonight to show kind of the efforts between the developer and the property owner and kind of where they've landed. So they did give them a couple options on how to mitigate the issue. I don't think any of those were received as favorable, so that's kind of where we've left off things regarding that. But the developer still continues to engage with the property owner, and that's something that we will definitely encourage as we continue to move forward. Adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and necessary facilities have been or will be provided. So the proposal or the project will be connecting into city sewer and water as a part of that. The road widths and lengths are done to city standards, so we don't see an issue with the size of the road or anything like that. And then relating to drainage, based on what they're proposing, it will be improved as a result of that. So that criteria is definitely being met. And then adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress or egress so designed as to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets. So again, that kind of reverts back to the traffic study that was done that we required for this preliminary submittal. And again, that study did conclude that the volume increase will only be 5.6% added to Crest Drive. And then the level of service will not be negatively impacted with the added volume to that road. So in conclusion, we didn't get any negative analysis or feedback from the traffic engineers regarding this proposal. So we feel that the traffic that was analyzed is suitable for what's being proposed out there. So in conclusion, we are asking you to make a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary plat and this conditional use permit for Shepherd of the Hill Twinhomes based on the conditions that are listed in your staff report. This is a public hearing as well, so I think I forgot to note that on the agenda, but it is a public hearing since there's a conditional use permit and preliminary plat request. So there will be an opportunity for the public to speak on this where needed. Otherwise, the applicant is in the audience as well to help with any questions you may have. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any that you may have right up front. Otherwise, I'll leave it back to you guys.
I just had one question. I'm looking at this aerial, and it's showing the width of the road going into the cul-de-sac as being 32 feet. What is the length of that portion until it gets to the cul-de-sac from the road to the circle part? What is that length?
The width or the length would probably be, it's probably going to be close to 35, 40 feet length before you hit the bulb of the cul-de-sac.
Okay, because it looks a lot longer than that because the width, it says, is 32. Mm-hmm. And it looks like it's probably,
It looks like it's about as
Well,
long
like
as the cul-de-sac is.
twice.
Yeah, I'm
as
probably
long.
not counting for the additional boulevard space and front yard space. So we're probably looking at,
Maybe double, 50, 60
yeah,
feet?
Like maybe
60
double?
feet
Okay.
Okay.
if
Looks
we're
like
comparing.
it's about as long as the cul-de-sac is wide.
Yes.
Or diameter.
Yep. Yep, and typically cul-de-sacs or bulbs are 60 feet wide.
Okay,
So
Oh, I see what you're saying.
same
that makes sense.
It's for fire trucks.
parameter, then yes, it would probably be about 60 feet in length before the bulb
Right.
of the cul-de-sac. Yep.
Okay.
Liz, one of the first bullets for the CUP was the value. You know, it's not going to have a negative impact to the value or the appraised side of things. Have there been any kind of property value studies done to the area with the view or the change of putting the twin homes in the residential area? Or do we see something that has happened recently in Chaska?
Not recently. I mean, again, since we have seen this type of application before in other parts of the community, we can't say or not say that it impairs property values. So we don't have any specific data to go off of to say that it impairs the property values around the area. Because again, it's something that we see in the community itself. We don't have any supporting data to say that once these go in, it's gonna diminish property values. Usually when you put residential next to each other, it's pretty consistent all the way through. But without having an assessor here, it's hard to say what the data would be on that.
Has the homeowner to the south with the drainage issue, have they spoken with the developer? Are they happy with a half acre versus the 1.8? Has there been any conversation? There's a lot of conversation with
I'm not
The-
sure
the
if
lights.
the developer has had any communication with the southern properties.
It sounded like he had a heck of a problem with
Yep,
with
yep.
with flooding in the basement and drainage, and so
Right.
that seems to be a
Right.
very important
So
part. Is
I'll-
he here tonight?
I don't think he's here tonight, so,
And the applicant?
yes,
Have you spoken with?
he'll be able to
Okay.
speak to that. So unless you guys have any other questions for me, we can maybe invite him up.
Looks like we're good, Liz.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe, since we're on that topic, maybe we should have the applicant come up
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
and talk about that and your position on the other issues, and give us your name and address. And
Sure, members of the commission. My name is Chad Dittman. I'm a project manager at Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity. Thank you for taking the time to review our project again. I have not spoken to the neighbors to the south again yet. We've been working through the staff comments and comments from Stantec on the drainage issue with our engineers, and we're kind of still in the process of that. So before going to them directly, I thought we should probably wrap that up with staff. So we're kind of evaluating the idea of the berm or some other rate control measure, whether on-site or on the church property, and hope to continue that conversation with engineering.
Okay.
Any other specific questions?
yeah, any questions for the applicant before? I don't know how we should tackle the next issues with the homeowner. If, I don't know if we want to have the homeowner speak first and then you
Yep.
reply, or.
I'm okay with that, sure.
Or,
Yeah, why
it is a
don't you-
public hearing.
Yeah. why
So we
don't-
should open up the public hearing
Right.
first. And so we will open up the public hearing at 7:24.
We could flip to that one picture with
So,
the,
sir, please, hold on a sec. Give us your name and address and let Liz, or then you can
okay.
get.
My
get
name
up
is
there
Jeff
whatever-
Felmley, and I am the new resident of 1561 Crest Drive, across the street from the Cul-De-Sac.
Great, thank you.
The one that actually showed, that one.
That one.
This is the one that's been presented to me, and I just want to apologize right away that a lot of this information that's been presented, I wasn't aware of yet. I'll dive into my comments. So whatever might be, it might be a little bit off, but I want to thank everybody here for taking the time to meet with me today. This is my first public hearing. I recently purchased a residence on 1561 across the street from the cul-de-sac. After about 2 years of saving the necessary funds, I was able to purchase this residence 1 month ago. Let's see, the last couple of weeks have been somewhat difficult when I was approached by Chad from Habitat for Humanity to work out a solution to prevent the light from hitting my home. When Chad left, I went over to my neighbor's house, who's been a 19-year resident of my neighborhood, to get his opinion on this topic. He reminded me that it wasn't just about me, but it was about all of us in the neighborhood. I want to start out by thanking Chad for taking the time to stop by and work throughout this entire process, as well as Elizabeth to go through. The two main forces that are pulling me to talk today at this meeting is my quality of life and my neighbor's quality of life. One of the main things I like to do now that I'm a homeowner that lives across the street from this cul-de-sac is shoot hoops in my front driveway and converse with my neighbors. A large reason why I purchased this property was for the front yard. If this development continues, I will have construction crews building not just for 1 year, in my opinion, but 4 years. It's my understanding it's one unit per year that it will go on. So it's not just wham, bam, it's done. This is going to be a 4-year event that'll get these prices, or that'll get these houses in there. And actually, if you see the thing, or if you see the picture in front of you, my bedroom window is directly across the street from that entryway. I have a living room and a bedroom facing that cul-de-sac with my neighbor to the right, bedroom kitty corner to mine. So at the end of the day, it is very anxiety-filled that this would be looking at my property. Not only would it be the construction going back and forth over the last couple of years, but that those same concerns will be replicated through the neighborhood, parking, noise, lights throughout my time in that residence. My biggest fear would be that I would never get to enjoy my front yard again. There is a potential of 8 families with approximately 1 to 3 vehicles each, resulting in 8 to 24 cars need to be parked in front of my house. It's my biggest scare that when I look out my front door that there are overflow parking along the entryway to the cul-de-sac, outside my home, that they would spill out events, parties, whatever they have going on there. And as we all know, living in Minnesota, winter months, it is dark very early. So from the time that I get home at 5 o'clock till I go to bed at 10 p.m., there is potential of having 24 cars flash my entire front side of my property, which in my point doesn't seem reasonable given the current layout of it. I'm not against the Habitat for Humanity type side of this. I'm just against the location of the exit. I wish if there was ever a way to put it the other side, up to Engler, anywhere besides not just my house, my neighbor to my right, my grandpa's brother to the following side over to Engler, and Dwight and Aubrey the following side. It's a lot of concern for us, not only us, but as well as the children who I've been told walk from Chaska Middle School West down that hill to go home to their residential homes. There's large traffic, scooters, bikes, skateboards. In my side, or my opinion, it does feel that the increased traffic might risk that safety concerns for the children, yet alone any of the nieces and nephews that I have over playing in my front yard. My comments were long. She handled a lot of them, but I just wanted to speak today and thank everybody. Thank especially Chad again. I understand this is not, it's a good thing. Not necessary, in my opinion, the location of the entryway. So I really do hope there is a way to get Habitat for Humanity, get people in those homes, but my scare is the parking in front, as well as the lights flashing my front doors at all hours. I have backed my vehicle up to those flags and turned on my lights. It flashes roughly 50% of the entire part of my house. That's what I've seen, that's what I've noticed. Thank you again, Chad. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Well, hold on a sec. While you're up here, maybe,
Yeah, rambling.
can we talk about what's been,
Yep.
from your point of view, what's been offered, what, Are you
Yeah,
not
so Chad was
satisfied
very,
with-
very nice. He stopped over one day when I was on my way home from work and offered me a couple of top-line initiatives, blinds, shrubbery, and shifting it one way or the other. Just looking right at it, it would benefit me to move closer to Engler. Does it benefit me? Does it hurt the gentleman to my left? Does it hurt my grandpa's brother? It's really, moving it, who do you hurt? Yes, I don't want it in front of mine, but it's the entire neighborhood that I feel is impacted from it.
And so what's the outcome of moving it? I looked through the correspondence, it seems as if you could potentially move the road 5 feet, try to line up with your driveway more. And
Yeah.
you weren't in favor of that. Is there a reason why that wouldn't work?
I've been the homeowner for 1 month.
Understand.
So, perfectly out there, it's something that it shocked me first. So to see the research that everyone has done, it's definitely helping a little bit. ideally, from the conversations I've had with people in the neighborhood, you know, if we could put our voice in, it would be mirroring the same side of the road. You know, if we could have a perfect world, it'd be 4 single-home houses parallel to our home. So looking out at it, we see driveway with 1 car backing up, not potential of 3 cars each residence taking right turns in front of our property was kind of my thought process on it. But like I said, I bought a house a month ago. I want to do the best thing for my neighborhood as well as my own, the profit values.
And has there been any discussion about like pine trees?
There has been. Chad has brought some of those up. We were going to meet with a number of landscaping companies. Yes and yes. My thought is it's unfortunate that I have to change given this, even though it's a good cause. It's something that I don't have the financials to do right now or the drive to change the front of my house. I bought this home for the way it looks.
Well, I meant more for the applicant to provide pine trees as a way to screen.
That would help me, but would it help
Because
the neighbor to
ultimately,
my left?
I mean, to understand what, you know, understand this side of it in the city's aspect, I mean, you know, that is an allowed permitted use, there has to have access, right? So there has to be a driveway somewhere. And unfortunately, I do understand, Engler, Liz, I mean, that could or would be terminated.
It wouldn't be possible to provide an access
Right.
off Engler because
County
of
road.
the church property.
Well, the church is
and-
going to lose that access too, right?
Right, the county's gonna do improvements on Engler
Yeah.
that's gonna really limit access
Okay.
in general.
Okay.
And it sounds like you've evaluated blinds, because that seems to be a reasonable remedy.
To put blinds in my home,
Yeah, if you go with the. room
it would
darkening.
prevent the light from being in, yes. I love looking out my windows.
Well, sure. I mean, but as far as the lights that you're concerned about in the evenings, it seems
Yep,
to
when I-
me that blinds would be a reasonable remedy for the issue.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Cars, you talked about
Parking,
cars,
yeah.
parking, and so you do the math, you get 2, 3 cars, a unit, understand where you're coming from. If you put 5 single-family homes there, I mean, we're talking about, there's 8 instead of 5, maybe additional 10 cars. I mean, so in your perfect scenario, if they did a cul-de-sac and did single-family homes.
Oh, sorry. That wasn't what I was looking as mirroring our.
Well,
exact-
right, but we can't,
Okay.
you know, tell a developer what they have, you know,
Yep, okay.
there's some constraints. I'm just saying, like, if they were to do another cul-de-sac where they had 5 single-family homes, you still have the cars. So how many, there are 2-car garages, is that correct? So by seeing the cars, I mean, I have to imagine at least 2, so 4, 8, 12, 16 would be accounted for in garages. I would think, right? You'd want to park in the garage.
You would think, yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to verify, so they are 2 cars? Okay.
Just out of curiosity, were you aware of this?
Yes, the
Okay.
transparency was that there was going to be a neighborhood, but there wasn't transparency over it would line up right where it was.
Because,
You know, could've-
because our concept plan,
It was in June.
was well before you bought.
Correct.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make.
And I was aware something was occurring for
Yeah,
Habitat for
so-
Humanity.
This, I believe so too, right? This was documented in public knowledge, this exact picture, pretty much,
Yeah,
without some of the,
it's on our website.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is close to what we saw.
okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to
I just
make.
want to understand.
Yep, and
timing.
full transparency, I bought it from a friend. So
Yeah,
there's no hard feelings.
Yeah, it seemed like you knew a lot of the neighbors. I said,
Yeah, well, my brother,
how
yeah,
did you
my
not know?
father.
I
So,
understand where you're coming from. Is this your first house?
my first home,
Okay, so I understand where you're coming from, the anxiety, first time buying a house, something new's happening right away.
Yeah.
I totally understand. I've built 2 houses, construction takes place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got going to a neighborhood and sometimes, like the neighborhood I did, it took a few years,
yeah.
you know, so I get that. I know what you're talking about. Okay?
Would the pine trees solve the majority of your problem?
It's hard to tell. just for me at this current situation.
Well, that in combination, I think, if the road were to shift,
Right.
so you've got, you know, your driveway and the road are a little more in line with each other, so
Yeah.
at least the direct, I mean, 'cause you can't solve, well, Liz was going over, I'm looking at the neighborhood, and, you know, there's a house that's 1, 2, 3, 4 down, 4 to the south of you, that's right in front of scenic view. And so all those neighbors probably come up that road and look right at the scenic view house. You know, I mean, it happens, unfortunately, and I'm not trying to downplay it, but there's houses out, matter of fact, my own house that I had over in Clover Ridge previously, Angler, it was a 2-lane road, a light went in, Hy-Vee was gonna go in, all that stuff. Turned into a 4-lane road, and I lived right on the pond, and every car that came in, I'd see the headlight. I mean, so I understand what you're going through. It happens.
And I completely respect that. I was hoping
Yep.
just to share
So
an opinion.
I would like to see a resolution if we can get the applicant to help out with a reasonable,
And just to be clear, you guys are still talking, you're still going back
Yes,
and
sir.
forth?
About a week ago, I kind of just wanted to talk first with Elizabeth and some of the people, just so I didn't say like, hey, I'll take the blinds, and then potentially he comes in and says he's on board. I want to do the due diligence to my neighbors, the people who I'll be living with next to for a while, so that's why I'm here today.
Reasonable, so I just wanted to keep talking.
Yep,
Because we're
correct.
not
At this point on, I'll keep.
We're not at
talking.
final yet, and
Yeah.
so,
Well, I'm also wondering, and I know this could be crazy, I'm not a builder or an engineer or anything, but, so, I was looking at that 60-foot length, and we're talking about, shifting it up or down, and I think they talked about the width, and changing the width would like take away property area and all these different kinds of, if you put it at a different angle and all these kinds of things. But I'm just wondering if anyone's ever looked at like the angle of it in terms of like, what if it were like a bridge, that had an arch to it, that had like something that when it was coming up, the light's being blocked, so at least the amount of time the light's shining in your window would be shorter, because it's not, 60 feet of the light shining at you, it's, just a short little bit of the light shining at you. I don't know if I'm stating that clearly, but,
A hill?
just kind of thinking out of the box, and just, like a hill, a bridge, something that keeps, that uses the angles to keep the light out of your window, rather than just moving it north, south, or whatever. That's maybe a little bit more for the developer, but I'm just throwing that out there as another thing to maybe look at.
Yeah.
yeah, that,
so, I'm
because
sorry.
we're, Habitat for Humanity's building. So I know there's, there is budgetary
Well, I think-
constraints,
well,
as far as like putting a bridge or, and I guess if we did a
Okay,
hill,
yeah,
you
it
could
could
have other
Hill,
things.
like put some dirt
I
there
think- I think from-
and put some kind of a, something
their
that goes
side.
over the road, that when the cars come in like this, it's blocking that light until it gets to the bottom of that hill. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there as maybe angles are another way, height and angles and things like that might be another way to
So-
minimize light.
Chris, Susan's not, she's the tree expert, but
You're the
I'm
second
gonna,
tree
I'm gonna,
expert.
I'm gonna be the tree expert
You're the B
tonight. So
team.
going back to, let's say the applicant was on board with providing a couple of pine trees, right? I mean, they're not too expensive.
Yeah.
2 different varieties or 2 of the same or something like that. I mean, would that, and not like tiny ones to start, but, a decent size one to get from a
We got 4
nursery.
years.
They can plop it in.
Yeah.
I mean, are you opposed to having pine trees? Gotta be a really great solution for a 24, year-round block.
Yeah.
So if they moved it a couple feet to line your driveway, and then you had a couple of pine trees just south of your driveway.
Yeah, we did think about that. I have 3 really large trees in my front yard. We talked about that yesterday, about doing that. And I was like, well, if you're gonna put pine trees right there, you're gonna have to get rid of these huge trees that I currently have in my front yard, which would then cost a ton. I mean, I think it's about $1,000, $2,000 tree.
What about arborvitae? Like
What?
the arborvitae, like the pine
Skinny,
tree, skinny, kind of taller bushes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were gonna meet with a landscaper and have
So I'm
them
just
draw
trying to
something.
think of
Sounds
like
like
some
you-
sort of conifer, some sort of,
We
arborvitae.
wanted a berm, but to get a berm on my side, I'd have to get rid of the other trees, which we were gonna meet with them sometime this week.
Yeah, I don't know if you want a berm in your front yard.
I don't want a cul-de-sac either, but I'll take a berm.
house with
Let's-
the trees. That's a picture of the house with the existing trees. Those are two nice
I mean,
trees
exactly.
there.
They've already got nice trees to be able to put
Beautiful.
evergreens even as
Yeah.
covered is gonna be difficult to do with the size of trees you have at the front yard as well. I mean, it'll help minimize the headlights, but you're also competing against the mature trees that are already sitting in your front
might
yard.
Yeah,
as
so
well,
maybe,
too.
maybe a landscaper could help with maybe arborvitae.
I would,
Right.
I think
I think
we're all on the same page here, and
Yeah.
it sounds like the developer and yourself are working together on this, trying to come to some resolution, and I don't think any of us are experts on what his yard should look like.
No, and it seems it'll be a combination of, it's not just one thing that'll
Yeah.
solve it, it's gonna be multiple things.
and because this is, your first home, it's probably your first chance to work with city staff on stuff, and they're very good.
Okay.
They're- Every,
They've been good so far.
before it comes to final, obstacles are resolved to everyone's satisfaction.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thanks for coming up.
Thanks again, Chad, Elizabeth.
Anyone else?
I'm Dwight Hemme. I'm at 1547 Crest Drive. I'm right to the south of Jeff.
Okay.
And I guess I want us to think about what we're asking Jeff and potentially the neighbors to the north and south, including me, to do is to modify our lives and our yards to accommodate this new development. We were there first, and we bought for the reasons why we did, to not have to make these accommodations for somebody else's project. So just understand that that's our position, and that you're asking us to make all these accommodations and to put up with our changes in our neighborhood for something that is going to impact us and our quality of life. Our bedroom is right on the corner there too. You shift the driveway 5 feet one or the other, it's going to put more lights on one neighbor or the other when people are turning. We shouldn't have to put berms, trees, shrubbery in our front yard just to accommodate another property's development. So that's my position with that. As far as the drainage on the property, it's good from what I'm hearing is that berming and some other things is going to alleviate the property drainage for Ryan that's immediately to the south. But the amount of rain and snow that falls on that property doesn't change. That water's still got to go somewhere. If you stop it from going in Ryan's backyard, it's still going to go to the street and the curb. It goes to the street and the curb, if you don't add additional storm drainage, it's going to go to that one storm drain at the bottom of Crest Drive that's already overwhelmed. And so you're going to have to add additional storm sewers in the cul-de-sac or right at the outside of it to be able to accommodate the extra water.
Hey,
I see
Liz?
the water that goes down the culverts every time it rains hard and the snow melts.
So currently, there's no storm drainage in the cul-de-sac or on that, so it would need to collect, go down the road and then into that. So that's where the
So you're just diverting it.
investigation was to extend the stormwater.
Yep.
And that's still being,
Well, I think there's an engineer's memo in here
Yeah.
already,
Yep.
though, that, yeah, they don't feel like it's required, so.
They don't feel like it's required. They don't live there.
I realize that, but we
Okay.
do have to trust our engineers to some
Very good.
extent that they know what they're doing when they look at these projects. Because I'm not an engineer either,
Right.
so.
Yeah, it falls below the minimal requirements to meet certain county and city standards.
Sure.
However, they are making note that it should be further evaluated as a part of this preliminary and going into the final process. So it's not a requirement by the threshold that they're meeting right now, but they are asking that the developer look at it a little bit further to see if it can be accommodated.
Thanks for the clarification.
And I guess what I'm asking the commissioners is, use your heart and your gut on your votes on this, rather than just specifications and rules, because it is impacting us. So, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Audrey Hemme at 1547 Crest Drive. I live with Dwight, just south of Jeff's house. And I guess I just have a couple of questions and I have a couple of concerns. When Habitat for Humanity, and Chad, you could maybe answer this. When Habitat for Humanity was contacted, I'm assuming by the church, we were never ever given notification that this is what was going to happen. And what were your thoughts as neighbors? Is that correct? It's just that you guys came up with a plan for 4 duplexes. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Come on
Yeah,
up.
please,
Yep,
sure.
join me.
Well, I would say that we talked with, the church did approach us, and then we talked with the church about a variety of ideas. And during that process, negotiated the purchase agreement. And we didn't want to commit any funds to engineering and site design with an engineer until we had secured a purchase agreement. Once we had secured the purchase agreement, we engaged an engineer to start on the site planning based on this concept, yes, of a cul-de-sac and twin homes. In order to achieve the goals of the church was to sell to us as much of the property as possible. That is one of their goals. Hence the desire to get into the property further rather than just do houses along the street. So with, and of course our desire to maximize the number of units because that reduces the per unit cost. So with those 2 kind of goals in mind, we started working on that site plan, and then in February held a public meeting at the church. And I hand-delivered notifications to
And
all
we
the
attended
neighbors,
that
and you guys
meeting.
were there, so.
Yes,
That
we
was
were
the
there.
first time that
Yeah.
we engaged neighbors.
Right, and so we were, I felt that as the neighborhood, we were never, asked our thoughts, our feelings on this kind of a development coming in. And so what I kind of feel is what I had heard from hearsay is that the church was getting tired of paying for somebody to mow this land that was gifted to them. And so by trying to sell off as much as they can, gave you this much property to develop this much, whereas if they would have approached the neighborhood and said, this is what we are thinking, what are your thoughts? Because we want to be a neighborhood that's friendly. We were never asked. We would have said, we don't care for this plan, but we always thought that someday it would be sold off in lots to parallel across the street, like what our side is. So I kind of feel that a problem the church had of the expense of a gifted piece of property to them to mow has now become our problem. Whereas if you were to sell off individual lots, and develop them into Habitat for Humanity, I'm right there with you. Habitat for Humanity is a great thing, just not this particular design for where we're at. So I don't know what the city has in benefit to approving this type of a development versus individual lots across the street from us.
I wanted to touch on a couple of things. I hear what you're saying. I can tell it means a lot to you. So a couple of things. There's no benefit to the city to approve one way or the other.
Okay,
Developer has legal right based upon zoning to come in and do what they can do. And so, and that legal right is.
so a developer meaning what, sir?
Anybody. And then, you know, anyone who purchases that property, it becomes their personal property. They have legal rights to do what's within
Right.
zoning to it. I mean, if it was zoned commercial, they could put a office building there. And they don't have
Right.
to consult with you outside of the public notice, which sounds like you did attend. So I'm not trying to be defensive or attack you, I just want to understand and let you know, when if you go to sell your house, you don't have to talk to your neighbors and say, hey, I'm gonna sell, what do you guys think? They don't have to do that. They do have to provide public notice when they go to develop something, which just sounds like they did do that. And then they come to city council and planning commission for concept plan, which they did do. And so that's where neighbors get the notice and letters go out and they hold the public meeting, but they don't, unfortunately, right? Like I lived across from where Hy-Vee was going. It just goes there. Like they don't
You
consult.
did?
I
or
did.
You do?
I did.
And you moved?
I eventually moved, but it's still not, Hy-Vee's still not there. But at any point, what I'm saying is, they don't have to get your input. If it's zoned that, they can do that, and as long as they meet the legal requirements, it's allowed. So that's kind of the process that takes place. And that's what we have here today. And so ultimately, you're not in favor of it, but it conforms with what is legally published in the city of Chaska of what you can do. And so those rules and that zoning is set out there publicly, and that's what we said you can do. So if we arbitrarily say, well, you can't do that now just because I don't feel like you should, that's not legally right either, from the city standpoint.
But it's the connection within commission to be able to hear and
Hear
be
your
able to give
complaints and try to
recommendations
give-
as in to be able to minimize or mitigate any of
Right.
the outstanding concerns that can be addressed, based on the commentary and the public notice that we get.
So like the
from-
homeowner to the north with the lights, we can try to see pine trees, darkening blinds, move it 5 feet. And then you're to the south, correct? And so do you have the same light issue, or is it just in general, you don't want 8
It's-
homes, you want 5, or?
They're gonna shine in his front windows and bedroom while they're pulling, or driving out, but while they turn, our bedroom's right on that front corner too. So we're gonna have the same, it's gonna be less
Turning in this
to
way?
turn in and out, right.
Okay.
So,
And
It's-
I guess the one
there's-
thing that I'm confused on is, okay, you're talking about if the developer and the owner have the legal right to use their property as they are and it conforms with all the zoning, fine. Why do you guys even vote to approve or disapprove it then? Why does it come to your oversight? You guys have a responsibility to do what's right too, even if everything falls into place, you guys still have the responsibility to do what you think is right.
Because there's a lot of homeowners in that neighborhood that aren't here. They don't have the time, they're not putting in the effort, but you talk to them, and they're not in favor of this. Not this many units, not this particular style. And when you asked about assessing home values, Elizabeth said, well, we can either confirm or deny that they're going to go up or down. When it comes to the point where we decide to sell, then that's just going to be our problem to deal with because of that being a crosshair. If somebody would look at the house and say, you know what, I really like your house. I was interested until I saw the big development across there and all the commotion. I don't want to live in that kind of a neighborhood. Then that's what we have to deal with.
Unfortunately, because I live in Chaska, obviously in the city, part of living in the city is you get your little God's green acre, and your neighbor gets his green acre, and the neighbor across the street gets his. And if everybody is following the zoning laws, as Commissioner Brass went through already, I'm not gonna do it again. This is part of living in a city. I mean, you can't keep light out of your house. You can't decide that the guy who's legally doing something across the street that follows the rules and the zoning laws isn't something that you like, and we're probably 50% of the way down the road here. Things don't just change because we want them to, unless they're not
We have
following.
to change. That's what we're gonna have to
You-
do, is we're gonna
that-
have
that's
to
in your
change
mind
and
that you have to
adjust.
change. You really don't, you have to accept. That's different than
And
change.
so if any of you were living on Crest Drive, I'm not gonna ask you to answer me, but I would be very curious if any of you would be sitting in that audience and coming up here and voicing your concerns.
Actually, I'll answer that one. I was actually standing in your spot, actually about 12 months ago, because it was happening in my backyard. And I stood there, and the commission listened, and the developer listened. And my neighbors did the same thing. They came and spoke what they had concerns with. And it all worked out. It wasn't perfect because it's still in my backyard, but the developer and the city took the steps necessary to minimize the negative impact on it. It didn't eliminate it, but it minimized it enough where before it was a field and trees, now it's going to be houses. It's different, but the process works, and that's why the commission is here, so that you have the ability to voice it.
And again, another personal experience, I went through it. I lived in Clover Ridge, and we built a house, and then a data center went in, the big, huge data center off of Engler. And my back deck overlooks a pond, I moved from there, and it wasn't because of that, it was because of a growing family, but I had a deck overlooking a pond and a wetland and nice field for years. And then the big data center went in. So I came in, I addressed council at that point and the planning commission, and we wanted pine trees on a berm. And that was the resolution, but we, it didn't. And so I understand. I mean, I can tell you're very, you're very involved with this, and it means a lot to you. So I completely understand. But change does happen, and part of our job that you asked, well, what do we do, just vote or not vote, is to listen to this and help recommend solutions.
And we did. We expected change.
Yeah, part of planning
This
commission
just wasn't the kind of change we were expecting.
I
Was a
understand.
cul-de-sac with,
And so to answer your question further, the developer came in and said, hey, it's zoned residential, I can do 2 units per, 2 dwellings per unit per site, but I want to put row townhomes here and make 16 units, and I want you to vote on it, and do a variance or do a zoning change, and that's where we can say, we don't think that works. We're going to deny that. But if it follows, if it conforms, it conforms. And so I just want you to understand that from our aspect. It's legal, it's law.
Right,
Why
right.
did
Have
you
any
guys
other-
approve conditional use?
Yeah, which,
Correct.
yep.
Okay.
did you have anything else?
No,
I would just add, every development that goes in the city of Chaska or any city across the country, everybody has these issues. Everybody buys and has a certain view, and then all of a sudden there's a bulldozer there the next day type thing, and it's changing, and it's uncomfortable, but it is also what kind of makes our communities what they are. Sometimes it feels like we're taking a step backwards to go forward, and especially when it affects your property like it does. We're just here to try and fine tune it as much as we possibly can according to the law.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. Anyone else?
Members of the commission, if I could just make one comment on the move of the cul-de-sac, or the road of the cul-de-sac
Yeah, I'd like to hear
to
what
the
this-
north,
yep.
5 feet or whatever it is. We're happy to do that, but as you can see from the site plan, we are constrained on all sides by setbacks. And so we would need your cooperation in varying some setback, either front yard or rear yard on those north houses probably, in order to move the cul-de-sac north. We're
Right,
happy
that's-
to
that's
try
what I
to
was
figure it
thinking
out.
already.
but-
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If,
You go. Boy, we're a good team.
go,
No,
go, go.
My suggestion there is that you continue to work with the city and the residents, because the staff is gonna make sure that whatever works out the best for everyone is still gonna fall within the legal boundaries. And if it's decided that, at that point, that the best solution for everybody is some sort of a variance, then that'll get addressed at the time. And every time there's a variance request, there's a public hearing.
Yep.
So nothing like that would happen without the chance of you guys being here again if you like.
Yeah, I think a variance, if is needed to accommodate a shift in the driveway is certainly reasonable.
While you're there, can I just ask, have you ever looked at elevation and doing like a hill or something that would, you know,
Right.
with some kind of blocking, just to minimize how much light is just shining
Yep.
into a window as it comes up the?
So we are on a bit of a hill already. I think we're at about a 4-foot drop from the cul-de-sac to the street at this point. So there's a slight hill, over 60 feet, you know, that's not.
Going down
Going
towards-
down
okay.
towards Crest.
Yep.
As far as making that more of a hill, I feel like that would exacerbate our water management problem a little bit more. And then as far as putting something over the road, I'm not sure that we can install a private facility over a public road. Also, we have to accommodate moving trucks and fire trucks and everything, so I think it's got to be at least 13 feet high. I'm not sure that would, with a
And snow
4-foot grade
removal.
change, we're not going to block much light into the house itself.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Dealing with the storm sewer, I know it was discussed that it's being discussed as an option, but how serious of an option is being discussed as into extending the storm sewer into the cul-de-sac?
Well, it's low on our preference list. That would probably be the most expensive thing to do. Our preference would be to see if we can figure out the berm on the south side. We're going to have Phil to work with, and then look at infiltration on the lots themselves.
Because if I remember during the preliminary that there's only the one storm sewer at basically at the intersection down at the
Down
corner.
the south, yes.
So it's going all the way down the hill. So that's the only one for that whole street.
Yeah.
And then we're adding the cul-de-sac, which is now more surface area. I know the engineers have said that it would be, it's not required, but it would be definitely beneficial. If they're already having drainage issues already
Yeah.
with that, even if it's not all the way down to the corner, if it's somewhere, adding it somewhere on that street to be able
100 feet
to.
up, or just like a
Right.
secondary one.
Yeah, and I know that that's not within, you know, the development of here, but is that something that would be, or could be part of, you know?
Well, it sounds like also it's below city standard, what they have. And I mean, at the very least, it seems that we should bring it up to standard.
I think what Ms. Hanson
It's
meant
below
was that
the
it's below
threshold.
threshold.
Threshold. So
Yeah,
it's
that means
Triggering
it's
the
within,
requirement.
that means it's within standard.
Yes.
within
So-
standard.
The amount of impervious surface that they do would either trigger or not trigger certain requirements. So they are below the threshold of that. So
Oh.
it doesn't automatically put this in requirement into place.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
You were just thinking the
I was looking at it, okay, I gotcha.
Could I get a clarification on the construction timeline again? It was mentioned
that is a good
earlier
point.
that it could possibly be one unit at a time, do one, finish one, and then move on to the next. Is there a typical or an ideal construction timeline that you're planning on?
We are shooting for site work and infrastructure in the spring of next year, 2020, and beginning of construction of the first twin home building that summer, next summer. That construction would probably run through the winter. Then we're shooting to begin 2 additional twin home buildings in the spring and summer of 2021. some of that would run through the winter.
So the average building is about 6 to 8 months of construction with that
That's a
schedule?
reasonable estimate, yes, yes. And then the final building in 2022. So not quite 4 years. We're looking at, hoping for 3. No, that's what we were thinking.
So you're about a 6-month construction from start to finish, 6 to
6 to 9.
6 to 9.
You know, if it starts later in the year and we hit winter,
So now
there's some stuff
clearly,
that-
how much of that is inside construction? Like once you got the sticks up and you got it's
Sure.
sealed?
So let me think about this for a twin home. Excavation would start, excavation and foundation is
Yep.
maybe 3 weeks. Framing on a twin home would then probably be 4 weeks. Exterior finishes, from window installation and on is probably another 4 weeks. And then the inside work
So about
can
half the
start
time
at
out
that
and half the
time, but
in.
they kind of overlap, but then the
Some of it
inside work
overlaps,
carries
right.
on.
And then does the new homeowner help out then once you get to the inside work?
Oh, they can help out at the very
They
beginning,
can-
at any point during that time, yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Further comments, yeah?
Not seeing that, I will close the public hearing at 8:06. Bring it back to the commission for further discussion and action. If there is any more discussion, we've had lots.
Well, I mean, I just encourage the applicant, the developer, to continue to work with the neighbors to come up with a solution that we can see by final plat for the lights in the windows. I mean, I understand exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I think there's got to be a reasonable solution for both parties. You know, this scenario plays out in lots of neighborhoods all across Chaska, so it's not unique to you. At least at this opportunity, you have the chance to rectify part of the problem or get some sort of resolution, whereas other times you wouldn't. So, you know, I would just encourage that conversation to continue.
I think it sounds like, I think it will, too,
Yeah.
so.
I think at final, I'd just like to see more information about berming to help with that drainage, and if you're evaluating drain tile or what have you, to help with that if another storm drain is not going in. So, that's all I have.
Anybody else?
No, mine's just more of the storm sewer, that just, not the berming within the landscaping, but more on the street side of things, because
Yeah.
if they're already having issues, now we're gonna add more solid surface.
And Liz, I think you
But
should,
it sounds like,
we should put a spotlight on that before final. We'd like to see.
I do have a
Yep.
question, since you guys live there. Do you have issues with the road icing? I mean, do you have issues with the storm sewer not working currently? I mean, does it like back up and ice and you got car problems? You can come up if you want. Yep.
Ryan Hagelstrom, the one that lives on the corner that has the water run through his backyard.
Yep.
There's also the single storm sewer. It runs through his backyard to the storm sewer on his front corner of his yard. But we also have a large volume of water that runs down all of Crest Drive from Engler all the way down
Right.
to
And does
that
that
single.
ice up? Does the storm sewer provide enough?
And he could give you a better idea of that. All I know is that when it does rain, those gutters are full, and if you're adding more surface and more, and dumping it more on Crest Drive rather than it running through a permeable backyard, even though it's Ryan's backyard, some of that is soaking into the soil.
Right.
But now you're gonna probably overwhelm the existing storm sewer that's there. And icing up, yeah, that, the church lot just inherently does get a lot of snow in it, because it's not just from it being an empty lot, it's because Highway 41 and Engler is a high surface, and it gets a lot of wind, and all of that snow on top of that hill blows down the hill with a northwest wind. And so the cul-de-sac is going to be full of snow because that field is always full of snow. So you plow that off to the sides, and now you're also, when you plow, it's going to block more snow, and that Engler does fill up with snow on that west side as you're going south. It's all got to melt sometime, and it's already a problem. They plow the streets, and all we do is have to have a wind, and you've lost half a driving lane. So that's going to continue.
During Minnesota. All right, any more discussion on this? Otherwise, let's, decide? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Adjourn.
Okay, why don't you, can you read it in, or, I don't know if we need to. Liz?
You should.
Okay, there you go.
Motion to recommend to City Council approval of the Shepherd of the Hill Twin Home preliminary plat and conditional use permit, subject to the following conditions.
10.
10 conditions.
Bring 10 conditions.
All right, all 10, reading them,
You don't need to.
yeah, and all 10 conditions.
Motion by Commissioner Lacey,
I'll second.
Bovee with the second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your input.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to other business. We need to receive in the meeting minutes of the August 5th City Council meeting and the draft of the August 19th City Council meeting and the draft minutes of the August 12th Park Board meeting. Those have been read into the minutes. So I think the last thing is, any comments? Going to the round table? Commissioner Olson, go ahead.
Quiet month for me, nothing.
All right.
I just noticed for Patriot Day today that the fire station had a beautiful, enormous flag hanging from a structure there, and I thought it was really great. So thanks to them for doing that.
Yeah,
Commissioner Brass?
I don't have anything, but I agree.
Nothing.
Lacey? Urbanski?
In this particular situation, they didn't have to do a neighborhood meeting. They're going over and above on that, correct? They'd have to
Yeah,
do
we
a public
we
hearing.
typically encourage it before the concept plan comes to the public meeting setting. Is it required? No. Does it help? Absolutely. So we do try to get them to do that beforehand, in which case they did, so.
I think they'll resolve.
Yeah, I think they're working,
Yeah.
they're not happy maybe, but they're also not communicating, which is important. So, anything else?
That's all I got.
Okay.
I'm
Liz?
No, I don't think I have anything.
Okay, and then I just have one thing. Before the meeting, I came from Berta's Funeral Home for the wake for Dr. Edgar Ziegler, former mayor of Chaska, one of the real major shapers of the city of Chaska. He was the mayor from 68 to 74, which was the time period that Chaska put their dike system in. So it was probably the single biggest thing that happened to otherwise every other year, downtown Chaska was full of water. I mean, this was probably the single biggest thing to move the downtown of Chaska forward. And a dentist in town for 40 years. He was a professor at the U of M for 40 years. A lot of that at the same time, obviously. Army veteran, 60-year member of St. John's Church in Chaska. He was just a very important man, and I wanted to say it on TV. He was very influential to me, and I was proud to have known him and sad that he's gone. But he lived a good, long 89 plus years. So that's all I've got.
All right.
And that being said, let's have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Olson and second by Brass. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.
Thank God.